In this lesson, we are going to learn how to use lookup formulas to combine data in two different data sets. We'll be working in the lookups before Excel file in this lesson, and you can download that file by clicking on the Excel before button below this video. So if you recall, a lookup function combines data from one data set into another data set based on a common attribute. So let's see how this works, starting with a VLOOKUP. So what I have here is a simple data table that has an employee name, the department they work for, their title, and their salary. So this list just happens to be the list of those 12 employees that have received the Employee of the Month award for the last year. And what is going to happen in the next month is that these employees are going to be honored at a banquet coming up. So what the MC would like to do when each of these individuals comes up on stage is to announce how long they've been with the organization. So in order to do that, we need to know their starting year and how many years of service they have, but in order to calculate the years of service, we need that starting year. So unfortunately, this data set does not have that information. So we have to somehow get that in to this data set. Well, what we do have is we have the active employee directory. So this is a list of everybody in the company, the department they work for, their job title, and the starting year when they started, as well as the office where they work. So this is the information here in column E that we need. But the issue is that if I come down here all the way down, I have 1,003 or 1,002 employees in this active employee directory. That's quite a bit. I just need 12 data points from this data set. So what's the best way to get that information into our data set or data table here? Well, I could copy and paste each individual starting year into the data set. So I could come over here and I could say, okay, I have Curry McGill. So where is Curry McGill? Well, I can highlight this first column using Shift Control, the down arrow key, and then hit Control F for find and look for Curry. And there's Mr. Curry McGill. And he has a starting year of 2001. So what I could do is copy this and come over here and paste this into the starting year column. And there's one, and that took me about, let's say, 30 seconds or so, maybe a little less than that, and I've got 12 of these, so that's going to take me a little bit longer to do than a lookup formula would. So there's got to be a better, efficient way to do this, and that's where lookup formulas come into play. So if you recall, there are 5 components that go into a lookup formula, and one of them is the common attribute. So we first need to determine what our common attribute is before we actually do a lookup formula. So we have the attributes here across the top. We have employee name, department, and title. Well, department is not really unique to the individual employee, right? You could have multiple employees in the engineering department, for example. And same thing for title. You could have multiple people that have the same title. So those aren't unique values. The employee name is the unique value in this case. And if I go to the data set here, you can see that. Now, the one issue we do have, though, is that our data set has the first and last name of the employee broken out, meaning that they're in 2 separate columns. So if I wanted to do a lookup here, I actually couldn't because I don't have a common attribute. So what does that mean? Well, I need to create a common attribute. So how would I do that? Well, if you recall, way back in the beginning of this module, we learned how to do a concatenation. We're going to have to do one here on this data set. And we're going to do that by combining the first and the last name of these employees in this employee directory. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first we need to add a column to the left of the employee first name. So I'm going to click up here, right click, insert, and add a column. I'm going to add a header here, and I'm going to call this employee name. And I'm going to bold this and then change the text color to red to let me and everybody else know that this is not an inherent data field in this data set. I've created or added this to this data set. Okay, so in order to concatenate, we're going to use the ampersand as the quick way or the more efficient way to use the concatenation or do the concatenation without using the concatenate formula. So as with any formula, we're going to start by entering the equal sign, so equals. Then first I'm going to click on cell B4 to bring in the first name. So now I have Liz in this case as my starting point. Then I'm going to hit Shift and then the 7 key on my keyboard to bring in the ampersand sign. I'm going to then do open quotations, then hit the space bar and then do close quotations. So why is that important? Well, if you recall on our data set, we have a separator between our first and last name, and it happens to be a space. This portion here of this formula is going to let Excel know that we have a space that we'd like to put between the first and the last name. So now that we've done that, we can again hit Shift 7 to bring in another ampersand sign and click on the last name, which happens to be C4. Okay, when I do this, I am going to get a concatenation between the columns of the first name, then I have a space, and then I have the last name. So let me click enter, and perfect. It worked just the way we wanted it to. So I am going to copy this formula. I am going to go down to the bottom of this data set by using the column just to the right of where I want to go. I'm going to move over to the left using my arrow key. I'm going to hit Shift Control and hit the up arrow, and then I'm going to use our paste special function to paste these formulas. So I'm going to hit Alt, then E, S, and I'm going to come down to formulas and then click OK. And now I have the common attribute all ready to go. Now, in order to avoid having any issues with Excel confusing these this concatenated information, thinking it's not a value but rather a formula, we are going to avoid the risk of that by hard coding these values. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to highlight starting from A4 all the way down. I'm going to hold down Shift Control and then I'm going to hit the down arrow key to highlight my data set. I'm going to do Control Copy to copy it, and then I'm going to do the Alt ES Paste Special dialog again, but in this case I'm going to hit Values and I'm going to click OK. So what did that do? Well, basically it removed the formula here and I now have text values that Excel can work with as the common attribute. So I have this ready to go, and now I can start my VLOOKUP formula. Okay, so I'm going to navigate back to my data table and I'm going to click on my starting year where I want this VLOOKUP formula to be. So as with any formula, I'm going to hit equals and then I'm going to type in the start of the formula, which is VLOOKUP. I hit tab in order to bring the formula up, and then I'm going to do the common attribute here. The lookup value is going to be our employee name. So I'm going to click on Curry McGill here, B9, and that is the start of our lookup formula and the common attribute inside of that formula. I'm going to do comma to move to the next step, which is the lookup table or a lookup area. I'm going to hit Control page down to get to our data set. I'm going to use the arrow keys from A3. I'm going to select all the way through G3, and then using Shift Control and the down arrow key, I'm going to select the entire data set. So what we've done here is we have a rectangle effectively. So this rectangle is our lookup area. This is where we're going to look for the item we want to bring in, which is in column F, but it's going to be based on the common attribute in column A. So I'm going to select this entire area, and in order to avoid any risk of not looking in this rectangle, I'm going to lock this rectangle. So I'm going to click in between the A3 and I'm going to hit F4, and I'm going to hit F4 again between G and 1003. So now my cell and my table area lookup is locked. I'm going to do comma again, and now I have to find the column reference that we want to use for this lookup. And remember, this is a numerical value. So I'm going to come over to my data set using Control page down. I'm going to come back up to the top here and I'm just going to count the columns. So my column right here contains my common attribute. So that's column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so my value that I want to bring into the data set is in column F, which is the 6th or column number 6 in this data set. So I'm just going to simply enter 6. Next, I need to do the qualifier, which, as I said, is most of the time going to be false. So because I want to bring only the exact match, I want to match the exact employee name to their start year. So I'm going to hit tab to bring that in, and then I'm going to hit enter. And what do you know? 2001, Kari McGill. Perfect. So what I can do is hit Control C, come down here, and hit Control V to paste my formula. Perfect. So now I have the starting year for each employee. So that's great, but I wanted the years of service. So how do I go about calculating the years of service that somebody's been working here? So I know that the current year right now is 2017. So all I need to do is do equals, and I'm going to type in 2017, then I'm going to use the minus sign, and I'm going to subtract the starting year from 2017. So just 2017 minus F9. So I know that Kari McGill has been working at this company for 16 years. I can copy this and bring it all the way down here and then paste it using Control V. So now I know how long these individuals have been with this company, and we can announce their years of service at the ceremony coming up.